Impact X.
Our models operate at 300 to 400% greater efficiency. The technology that we build is remarkable. Water change is climate change, and it's certainly not as abundant as we think it is. Our perspective on how important water is needs to change. If we don't take immediate action now, we'll see the chickens come home to roost. Impact X investment to improve diversity in these verticals is something that is really remarkable. Impact X, they're fast, and that's really important when you're building a company.
Please introduce yourself and share with us why we should be so excited about Datacenics.
My name is Suhayl. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Datacenics. Our core mission at Datacenics is to help global society become more water resilient. I feel excited and passionate about our mission every day. The technology that we build is remarkable, and we leverage artificial intelligence and sensors. We work at the intersection of a number of different fields: water engineering, electronics, software engineering, UX, UI. So that's, of course, massively exciting and rewarding, but our mission is the thing that really excites and motivates me.
Share with us the founding story of Datacenics and what drove you to innovate the water industry.
There's a lot of serendipity to it. When I was growing up, I used to visit Pakistan. That's where my family is originally from, and we weren't on the grid in terms of the water distribution network. So we had a tanker come and fill up a tank of water. And once that was finished, that was it. And it gave me, I think at an early age, a very clear appreciation for how water scarce those regions actually are. And I always contrasted that when I came back to the UK with how different culture was around water usage here. In the earlier stages of my life, that's really what got me interested in water. At university, I did philosophy and politics, which is hilarious considering what I now do. But it was at university that in doing a philosophy degree, that I fell in love with artificial intelligence. I did a branch of philosophy that was related to logic. And then that got me interested in AI. And then when I left university, it was just a marriage of the two things. And, 7.5 years later, here I am.
How will your technology transform our interaction with water as a resource?
I definitely subscribe to the view that water change is climate change, really. It's foundational to how we think about climate. It's misunderstood and underinvested in relative to the overall climate problem. In terms of the technology that we're building at Datacenics, as a very brief snapshot of what it is that we're trying to do is help water companies do something that they currently do, which is understand how much of their infrastructure they need to replace, their water pipelines and their wastewater pipelines, on an annual basis, a 5-year basis, whatever their investment horizon is. And we try to optimize that so that every pound, every dollar that they put in delivers the most amount of benefit in terms of a reduction of leakage or a reduction of bursts. The current methodology uses a manual statistical method where a few, albeit very intelligent people, sit down and do some statistical analysis of large volumes of data. We just run that process using algorithms and artificial intelligence, and because the volume of data that we can look at in doing that is much greater. And we believe that in doing that, we can deliver some quite radical performance improvements. Some of our models operate at 300 to 400% greater efficiency in terms of the capturing of failure than existing models. It's a really powerful technology and one that we're excited to scale.
Given Datacenics' predictive asset management capabilities, should this become a global standard in water management?
If you look globally, there's a very clear shift that has been going on for at least a decade now, in that asset operators, whether that's gas, oil, water, roads, bridges, whatever they may be, there is a shift in infrastructure management from reactive to predictive asset management. We're looking to leverage the technology that's available to us as a society to learn about how our infrastructure operates, so that we can make smarter decisions about when to intervene in those assets, when to do something about a problem that emerges, rather than just letting those assets fail. And technology is a great enabler of that. So I definitely think that shift towards predictive asset management is inevitable and fundamentally a really good thing for human society. It's important to break down the problem and ensure that we focus the answer here, because the economically developed countries, their approach to water management is fundamentally different in certain ways than it is across, for example, the MENA region, the Middle East and North Africa region. It's different across continental Africa. Australasia has a lot of similarities. That's Australia and New Zealand with the way that we manage water in the UK and Ireland, North America. But I do think it's important to just make that distinction. If you look at the economic cost of leakage somewhere in like Saudi Arabia, for example, where water scarcity is an enormous issue, they have a much greater sensitivity, if you like, to water loss because of the economic cost of purifying, desalinating the water than for us here, where we have basins to easily catch the water and transfer it. We believe and have had the mentality in this country that we're water abundant for very long. I don't think that that's the right approach to have, because water as a resource is typically underpriced and undervalued, and it's certainly not as abundant as we think it is. The cultural aspects of water, how we think about value, largely depends on the geography that we talk about.
Is Datacenics technology enhancing efficiency and sustainability in existing water management systems?
Yeah, absolutely so. And, I think that its global society needs to have a greater and greater appreciation for water owing to its very limited availability, because despite the fact that most of our planet is made up of water, only 3% of the planet's water is actually potable. But here in the UK, I think, I look at what we've done here, and I think about the types of discussions that we have with utilities, and it's very clear that they're wanting to move towards a better understanding of the way that their infrastructure operates. Buried infrastructure, pipelines, are notoriously difficult to get information about because they're buried, right? They're out of sight and very often out of mind. So we are delivering some transformative capabilities to our customers here in the UK, where we're giving them a really rich picture of how their infrastructure operates. And what's really exciting for us is that we very often have water companies say to us that we're able to tell them more about the way that their networks are functioning than they currently know, just by doing more, going further with the data they already have in-house.
Could you recount a story showcasing how Datacenics improved water management and conservation?
I'd probably look to some work that we did with a utility here in the UK in helping them transform the way that they manage their leakage operation. So a utility came to us and said that at the moment, we send leakage technicians into parts of our water supply zone every day, and we ask them to conduct investigations as to where the leak might be in that given area. And we don't have any understanding as to where the best places are to go in that specific area, because we're not using data to say we ought to go here and then here and then here and then here. It's just a case of anecdotally, the technician will go into that area and just try to find a leak. Now, sometimes we're talking about the size of a borough, something that's maybe 3-4 square miles. These areas can be quite large, and so you can imagine it'll probably take a day, 2 days, sometimes longer to try and find this leak. And all we've done is introduce a methodology for that technician to be able to go for, or a rationale for that technician to go from one asset, i.e. one area where the leak might be, to another area. But we've underpinned that with algorithmic questions called the likelihood of leakage. So in other words, we're using AI to optimize the way that an existing process of finding a leak is currently investigated. And we're just doing that in a much more efficient way and driving down the time it takes to find a leak in the first place. So it was the delivery of that project that caused that particular customer to get incredibly excited, because we were just introducing a clear methodology, one that could be improved upon, and also came with a certain level of data as to how long it takes to find leakage. And this is what we mean about quote unquote smart water. It's not just the deployment of fantastic technology. It's really the shift in the underlying culture, changing the way that we think about water management. That's really the smart bit.
In pioneering new technologies, what have been some of the most formidable challenges Datacenics has faced?
There's definitely going to be people who are listening to this who probably have something to say about water being stagnant for a few years. I know what you mean, right? Like, we've historically had a conservative approach to the adoption of technology, right? Like, you're absolutely spot on in saying that, because The reason that's often cited is that because of the importance of water to public health, that the conservative approach that we have historically adopted to technology is necessary. I don't agree with that. I think there are ways that we can pilot and test and trial and quickly get to a point of understanding with new technology adoption that doesn't put the public at risk. There are very many sectors, not least the nuclear sector, where technologies are built and tested at rapid scale, but just in very enclosed, sandboxed environments. At Datacenics, we face failure challenges every single day. Building technology is really hard. Changing industry's culture or trying to be a component of that shift is really challenging. And I think what it is that makes us really special and unique as a business is that we massively embrace that failure. We really enjoy that opportunity to create that shift in mentality and technology, because we know that if we're successful in our mission, then we're moving the needle forward for water resilience globally. And that's a really exciting project to be a part of. But just generally to say that shifting the culture at the senior most levels of the water sector in economically developed countries within utilities is an enormously challenging thing, because you're having to go up against a status quo which for the most part has delivered services, i.e. delivery of water from service reservoirs to customer taps, pretty well for the most part. I know that we complain about leakage and water efficiency challenges. They definitely need to be resolved. But generally speaking, when we turn on the taps in our economically developed countries, in the UK, Ireland, etc., we find that water comes out the other end. So we have a long way to go. There's things that we definitely need to improve, but generally speaking, the trajectory is a good one.
Where do you see Datacenics in the next 10 years?
I revert back to something I said a little bit earlier about having this multidisciplinary team. At Datacenics, we have electronics engineers, water engineers, water systems modelers. We have software engineers building out our cloud environment. We have machine learning engineers, UI, UX. And the reason I'm talking to this is because when that group of people who are highly committed to delivering software for water utilities that helps those water companies respond to problems that and pain points that those water companies are talking to us about on a regular basis, that as a business philosophy is something that I love working in every single day. The notion that we'll be able to use analytics, artificial intelligence, large language models, which will have progressed to a really exciting place, I think, at that point. To use these in a symbiotic way, to not treat them as hostile, but to treat them as mechanisms that could meaningfully enhance the way that we get water from one place to another with minimal losses, and to be really efficient in our water management. So when I think about Datacenics and where we are in 10 years, it's really us being at the very forefront of efficient water management using AI and analytics.
Impact X Capital has a keen eye for transformative ventures. How will this investment enable Datacenics to scale its vision for the water industry?
When you're a small business, cash is your lifeblood, right? That's the thing that gets you through from day to day, moment to moment. We continue our mission. The thing that Impact X that is attractive to us is this desire to improve representation in obviously all of the sectors that Impact X invest in, but here in water, I joined the sector 7.5 years ago, and whilst I think building a business is very different to perhaps working inside of a utility where there might be a greater degree of diversity, I didn't find myself very often coming across other Pakistanis or even other ethnic minorities at some of the senior most levels of water technology companies or water utilities. So just the core mandate to Impact X investment to improve diversity in these verticals is something that is really remarkable to see, and obviously something that is a massively important thing for me personally. ImpactX and Datacenics working together to improve diversity. That's really what we're looking to, in part, deliver through this partnership.
How has ImpactX Capital's hands-on approach contributed to daily improvements at Datacenics, and how does their philosophy of active involvement aid company growth?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the engagement that we've had with ImpactX so far, I think you would point to 2 or 3 key descriptors, one of which is collaborative, the other is open. They really enjoy having a frank conversation. And the final thing I'd say is just in terms of that relationship is they're fast, and that's really important when you're building a company, right? So those 3 components are central to the relationship. And if I think about how that will deliver value for us in the long term, we're really needing a partner who can help us catalyze growth and catalyze our transition to market. It's very early stages. Of course, we've only recently taken the investment, so I'm sure over time the relationship will deliver some fantastic returns, both for shareholders and obviously internally at Datacenics in terms of our underlying revenue. It's just been a very collaborative relationship. That's probably the best thing I'd say.
Do you have any final thoughts or a message you would like to leave with our audience?
Considering this is a discussion that's at the intersection of investment and water, this is to be downscaled when we talk about the UK. But in the US, if you look at every dollar of investment that goes into business from venture capital, only 14% of that at present goes into a climate tech related company. In other words, that's saying 14% of all venture capital in the US at present is climate tech. If you look at that 14%, only 1% of that goes to water investment. So we're talking a percent of a percent of a percent. Now, if you then sensitize that to things like geography and demographics of founders, you can go into infinitesimally small numbers, but the point is that water technology investment at the moment, even within the context of climate investment, is undervalued and underinvested in. And that's what fundamentally needs to change. Our perspective on how important water is needs to change. The thing about water is it gets everywhere, and that's absolutely the case. And we need to understand that as a society. We need to stop treating water technology investment as though it's some fringe thing. Yes, it has been historically underpriced and subsidized, but that has also led in large part to, I believe, an environment in which we haven't sufficiently invested in our water infrastructure. So I'm hoping that we'll see more water entrepreneurs. I'm hoping that these large corporates who provide money to VCs, that they start investing more heavily into funds that are looking to deliver impact in water. And I think if we do that, I'm really excited by not just the landscape of water technology investment, but what that will meaningfully mean for societies globally.
How do you see AI shaping water network management?
AI has a really exciting, transformative potential for very many sectors, and it has the propensity to be deployed poorly or deployed well. And deployed well, it does have this remarkably net positive potential. If I think about how Datacenics leverage AI, going back to a point that I made earlier, we can deliver some quite remarkable operational enhancements to the way that water companies manage their infrastructure. In other words, just taking a process that they do every single day and just doing that with a technology that's more suited to the problem. In delivering that shift, if you think about what it is that we do at Datacenics, we're helping utilities determine the likelihood of failure in their infrastructure by making predictions about which pipelines are going to fail. And we do that by looking for potential areas of burst, i.e. total failure, and leaks, so partial failures, if you like. So if you think about the usage of AI in that world, what are we doing here? We're deploying models to understand something in the built environment and to generate knowledge that can be used by the water companies. And in that place, humans just have to redefine their relationship with technology. We're not here looking to dislodge anybody's job. We're not here to take away their skill set. In fact, I think if anything, the leveraging of artificial intelligence in the water sector, when deployed well, can help the operators of that infrastructure learn even more, deliver even better value, even more reliable services to their customers, users of water like you or I. So I think AI has a very exciting net positive potential. But what will definitely be the primary challenge is getting people comfortable to trust the technology. The example that I always use here is if you look at how Google deployed AI within their cooling centers, for data farms. These data farms are very much critical infrastructure. They're deployed for governments in certain instances all around the world. Google didn't just build an algorithm to optimize the cooling in its data centers and just let it run riot. It was staged, right? It's a step at a time. First you deploy in a localized environment with no major impact. Once it proves itself, you can scale it up. Maybe bring in some other systems, then you start to introduce humans, you introduce fail-safes, and you get to a point where eventually, as it currently is, it's deployed. The algorithms for optimizing cooling are deployed at most data farms that Google owns, and they have the famous kill switch, but they are for the most part running themselves because they have been scaled appropriately. And I think that's how we need to think about AI in water management. It's just a scaled adoption, bringing the key stakeholders along with us. And if we do that, then we can really see those major operational enhancements.
The water industry's vast scale and potential make it both significant and interesting, with the addressable market being huge.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think that we're a layer removed as a society in these developed economies from water abstraction and distribution. It just comes through the taps, and we expect it to come out of the taps, and it's Armageddon when it doesn't come out of the taps. We're on Twitter, we're on the phone, we're complaining, water companies are the worst. And we forget the fact that for the most part, the delivery of those services, perhaps it's not appropriate for me to talk across Europe, but certainly in England and Wales, the delivery of those services are really reliable. But we do need to be very honest about where we are with our infrastructure. Although I paint a mostly positive picture of the way that we've managed water services, it is also true that our Victorian era infrastructure is coming to the end of its useful life. And it has been underinvested in. I think that's fair to say as well. And we need to be aware of the fact that burst rates are going up, leakage rates are going up. So this is really, the signs that we're seeing are a harbinger for what's to come if we don't take immediate action now. We have an opportunity to invest in our infrastructure and to do that in an intelligent way and to get a handle on the decay of that infrastructure. And if we fail to heed that warning now, then we'll see the chickens come home to roost. And I really hope that that's not the case. I hope that we get a handle on it before that day comes around.
Impact X.